gosh. Here we go again. We're back with more of these videos. Today we're gonna be doing another Rotten Mango video. This one is called Coward Sailman or Captain Leaves 350 Students Left to Die. If you look at the thumbnail of their video, it looks like someone just left, as you said, left 300 kids to die. Guess the boat was sinking and then they let the kids die. Y'all really liked the last one, like a lot, which is crazy because I didn't think that video was gonna get views at all, but yeah, it actually did. So I don't know how this video is gonna go because I'm not trying to miss that Jake Paul Mike Tyson. I want Mike Tyson to knock his ass out. But anyways, I guess we're just gonna have to react to this one. There's like 2 parts in this one, so we will watch this one. The Rotten Mango video I did last time, that was early in the morning, so I didn't sound good, but it's late at night. Am I a little tired? Yeah, but I'm not tired enough to fall asleep when I made this video. Anyways, y'all can get y'all snacks. I'm not gonna get snacks because I just ate, but I do have this bottle of water. With that, let's check it out.
Bada bing, bada bing.
This is going to be a long one, and it's going to be a tough one, okay? We're talking about this Hayward tragedy, the sinking of this Hayward boat. Now, 2 16-year-old students from Tanwon High School, they made headlines. There were some rumors that they were dating. There were some rumors that said, no, they were just close friends. But most of the students that knew both...
I get those a lot in school. Where me and girl, we just talking. Not like dating, just talking as friends. And first thing that comes to mind,
people, are y'all dating? Do you like her? Is she your bitch? Like,
I can't have a friend, I can't have a girl, female friend, like, I don't gotta like the bitch, okay? Like, people in my school, you know who you is, y'all gotta chill. But I understand.
To them personally said they barely knew each other. I don't even think that they had a class together. Most kids said that was the extent of their interaction, just passing each other in the hallways. Yet the 2 of them found each other alone in a room, in a boat, terrified. I mean, they're watching the water starting to pool on the ground, and they didn't know what to do. I'm sure they were frantic. I'm sure that there were a lot of things going on in their minds. I'm sure that they were trying to comfort each other. But eventually, everything goes black. A civilian diver would later find both their bodies alone in that room, and their life jacket cords were still tied together. He remembers how he had to separate them because he physically couldn't bring up 2 bodies at once. And he recognized that in their last moments, maybe these 2 kids knew each other, maybe they didn't, but in their last moments, they didn't want to be alone. So they tied the strings of their life jackets together till the very end. And he said, I started crying, thinking that I didn't want to separate them, but I had to. He said it was one of the hardest rescue dives that he had ever endured in his entire life. He would never forget some of the stuff that was seen. Other students from the same high school, Tanwon High School, faced similar fates. A female student was seen throwing a chair at a window, a glass window, and she's hurling this chair with as much force as she can muster. She would go as far back as she could, and then she would throw it with all of her strength, and it would just clunk onto the window and fall back down.
She a quarterback?
She wasn't angry, but there was just pure desperation in her eyes. She could see on the very other side of this window were rescuers. They saw her, she saw them, and they did nothing but stare at her.
What? Why?
We're gonna get into it. I mean, this rescue, I don't even think you can call it a rescue. She realized that these people, these rescuers, they're not here to save her. All the people that she thought would be responsible for her safety, the captain of the boat, the rescue teams from the Korean National Coast Guard, they all abandoned her. They were watching her through the window, and it was very clear to her in her last moments that she was being left to die. Imagine these are the very last realizations that you have in your life. April 16th, 2014, this Haewol ferry capsized off the coast of South Korea. There were 476 passengers. Most of them were high school students around the age of 16 years old from the same high school. Okay. They were on their way to Jeju Island when their boat started sinking on one side. And when a giant boat that carries 500 passengers, when it starts sinking, it's not something that goes unnoticed, nor is it something that happens very quickly. Soon, nearby boats and vessels and even countries start giving out lending helping hands. The
many
Japanese
people.
Coast Guard asked if South Korea required assistance because they were right there. The US Navy had a massive vessel stationed nearby and offered to rush to the scene to help with rescue efforts. South Korea denied all of their requests. They told news outlets that they had everything under control, that they were operating a full-scale rescue operation, and that majority of the passengers had already been rescued off the boat and they're being rushed to safety.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Yeah, right.
South Korea told the world, hey, guys, these are our kids, and we're going to do everything to save our kids. But that could not have been further from the truth. This Haewol Ferry tragedy in South Korea would lead to the deaths of over 250 high school students, over 300 lives in total. It would lead to the president being impeached, the prime minister resigning, the Korean Coast Guard being disbanded, multiple high-profile arrests, a billionaire suspicious suicide, a helicopter crash, hunger strikes, and a vice principal of a high school found hanging from a tree in the woods, dead.
What
So
the
let's
hell
get into
happened?
the tragedy.
Then we got this bullshit intro. Taking that out the video for sure.
This isn't just a tragedy, it's a full-scale cover-up with the president, the most powerful person in that country, working with the media. So please go show support to Newstoppa if you can. And with that being said, let's get into it. The parents of Tanwon High School are getting bombarded with calls. Phone calls, text messages, voice memos, pictures are being sent to them. And it was like a parent's worst nightmare. Think about your 16-year-old kid aboard a boat on a school field trip, and they're sending you cryptic text messages like, Mom, I'm sending you this because I'm scared I might not be able to say it later. But I love you.
Yeah, I'll be like,
You're like,
what the
whoa,
hell?
what's going on? You're like on a field trip. Another kid sent, hope we can meet again alive. Another student said, if I've wronged any of you guys, please forgive me. The parents start freaking out, but they're told by their kids that, hey, Mom, Dad, the boat is sinking, but rescue efforts are on their way. I think everyone's got it under control. They told us to stay in our cabins and put on our life jackets. Many parents told their kids, okay, well, stick with your friends. Don't be alone. Don't wander out alone. And good. That's good. They have everything under control. Just keep calm and do what they say. Do what they say. If you listen to them, everything will be okay.
Yeah, only
These
know it's a
words
setup.
will haunt the parents forever. A lot of them couldn't even face living with the guilt because so many children would die from listening to what they said, from listening to what the captain told them to do.
Yeah, it's set up.
The ferry
so,
sank
yeah, they gonna
April
do
16th
something
of
stupid.
2014, but the story starts the day before on April 15th of 2014. So the students at Tanwon High School, this is like their annual trip to Jeju Island. They considered it a rite of passage, like a tradition for everyone. Every single high school student it's the sophomore class. They're so excited for this because, for one, their parents aren't going to be there. It's just their class and a couple of teachers. And I mean, just imagine the adrenaline and all this planning that goes into something like this. Any inconvenience that day that would have otherwise bothered the crap out of them, it didn't bother them anymore. I mean, they were waiting in line for hours at the port of Incheon, which is also where the international airport is. So Jeju Island is like the Hawaii of South Korea, and Incheon is actually on the northern side of South Korea. And they would get on a boat, go all the way down the left coast of South Korea, and then get into the ocean, the Yellow Sea a little bit, and then they'll hit a tiny little island called Jeju Island. It is the biggest destination spot for South Koreans. It's beautiful. It's like a cultural mecca. There's so much, there's a lot of fun stuff to do there. So these kids are like, yes, Jeju Island. Even when their ferry is delayed for 2.5 hours because of foggy conditions, they're like, that's fine. Are you kidding? Nothing is going to ruin this trip. This is the
Death.
best trip of my life.
Death.
It's a 300-mile trip by ferry. It takes 14 hours. But thankfully, they would be going down the coast of Korea most of the time, the left side of the coast. So they're going to have cell service, you know, and it was outfitted like a cruise ship, meaning that there's dorm rooms with bunk beds. There's communal showers, a convenience store, a cafeteria, you know, which for high schoolers, this sounds like a blast. Because they had cell service, a lot of them were able to reach out to their families, and those very phones would later document some of their last moments on board. There were 476 people on board the ferry, including the crew. Now, they board the ferry at 9 p.m. They were supposed to board 2.5 hours earlier, but like I said, a delay. It's not that bad. I mean, the ferry is filled with 325 high school students, 14 teachers, 29 crew members, and about 100 or so other passengers. So these passengers are going to Jeju either on their own for vacation, or there were a lot of truck drivers. So they go and they get cargo off from this same boat and they drive it around Jeju. Then they get their truck back onto the boat and come back to Seoul, and it's like a back and forth, right? So
Sounds like a huge boat.
oh yeah, it's a massive boat. Here, can you pass me my iPad? I'm gonna show you pictures.
So you're saying there's not only people but also like vehicles on there.
So many vehicles, and it's actually a cargo ship.
That's probably
This
why
is a
it's
cargo ship
so-
that loads on passengers on the side. The Sewol ferry, if you want to get technical, is 75% profits from cargo movement and 25% profits
God.
from carrying of passengers. Most
That's
of the
a lot.
pictures you're gonna find
Yeah.
now are of it sinking, but here is it before it sank.
Oh wow.
That's
It's like
big.
a
Like
Not
a cruise
huge,
ship.
huge,
Like a cruise
but
ship.
it's
Yes,
big.
Wow.
it's massive. So, I mean, a lot of these truck drivers were not very excited that they got onto the ferry with a bunch of high schoolers, but these same truck drivers would help try and save a lot of these students later. So, it's not like the high school bought out the entire ferry, nor was it a ferry that belonged to the school. There's a lot of people on here. So all 476 people, including the crew, they board the ferry and they start their journey. Now, the night of the 15th was pretty calm. Okay, so this is a picture that the kids posted or taken by one of the victims.
Yeah, freak out.
Just of them boarding
I
during
can't
the
do
foggy
heights, I
night. And
can't
it
do
just
water.
looks like they're so excited. And nothing
I'm
climactic
gonna have a heart
happens,
attack
which is
before I get on the
good.
boat.
Dinner is served. There's fireworks that are launched from the deck, and there's pictures of that too. At night, the passengers, they all go to sleep in their cabins. Now, the high school was pretty good about booking rooms on one level for all of the boy students and then for the girl students upstairs, right? So they had different levels. They all go to sleep around 11-ish, and the next morning at around 11 a.m., they should be arriving in Jeju Island. So it's like you go to sleep, you wake up, you have breakfast, and 11 a.m. you're at Jeju. They're so excited for this.
Like a
Now,
daily routine.
7:30 a.m. is when everything starts to slowly unravel. Helsman Cho and Third Mate Park. So these are two of the people that are going to be steering the boat now. They take over for the shift so the overnight crew can go into their cabins and take a nap or go to sleep.
I'll be
The
out.
helmsman is the person who's going to be steering and driving the ship, if you will. So Helmsman Cho, he's at the bridge, which is basically like the cockpit of the boat. And he's, you know, doing all these commands. And the captain was off duty in his room.
Okay, so the bridge is the driving room.
Yes.
Okay.
30 minutes later, around 8 a.m., breakfast is served in the cafeteria for all the passengers, the crew, and anybody else. 8:20 a.m., autopilot is switched off to manual steering. Autopilot off, manual steering on. Just 7 minutes later, the Sewol is sailing through the Mengol Channel. Now, the Mengol Channel is very pertinent to this story. There are other routes to take to get to Jeju without going through this particular channel. I mean, it really only saves like 7 miles off of your trip, but this
Okay.
channel is, it's not some sort of urban legend where ships go missing and it's like a terrifying place. It is a commonly used route, but it's not calm. It's not that safe. It's a little unpredictable. It is actually has one of the most rapid and unpredictable currents in the Korean peninsula.
And why would y'all go
It's got
through
these
there?
tidal shifts, meaning that you have to be super, super careful when you're passing through this channel. Some areas of the channel have
Unless they
rock
actually have
hazards.
to.
Some random areas have shallow waters. But Sewol was traveling through a part where it was pretty calm. Conditions were relatively calm. Even CCTV footage shows kids and truck drivers socializing on deck, finishing up their breakfast. Most of the kids were still asleep in their cabins, if I'm being honest, because, you know, it's very early.
Wake up.
As of 8:40 a.m., Everything is going well. Students are busy. Passengers are busy avoiding the students. Crew members are busy working. Within 9 minutes, everything would change. 8:49 a.m. Two crew members that were in charge of steering the ship decide to manually steer the ship 15 degrees to the left, which is a well-known fact to all crew members aboard this Hewar that they cannot steer this particular vessel more than 5 degrees in any direction.
Bro, oh my.
Mainly because of the amount of cargo it was holding.
Yeah, like all
so
that stuff,
why
you know.
did this Hewar ferry even start to sink? This Hewar was known, like I said, to be a cargo ship. 25% of their profits were just from passengers. So being incredibly irresponsible and greedy, they would almost every single time load way more cargo than was legally allowed.
What
It
are
caused
y'all
massive
doing?
dangerous
Were y'all not
conditions on the
prepared
boat.
for this?
And when they made this sharp turn, which is supposed to only be 5 degrees to the left, they went 15 degrees. And none of this cargo, none of these cars, they had almost 200 vehicles on this cargo ship. All of them slammed to the left
God.
because none of them are being tied down.
Anything
Side
tied
note,
up.
when you
Holy
read
hell.
official reports, it'll read that the boat was listing 30 degrees to port. Now, what that means, and this is from online research, I'm not like a
Oh my god.
Gonna let y'all know like the level of stupidity that's gonna come up, or not even just stupidity, just I don't know what to say.
it says listing to port, it means to the left. When it says listing to starboat, it means listing to the right.
You say listing how
I'm
much
not gonna
degree?
remember that.
30 degrees.
30 degrees.
Yes.
That's a lot.
30 degrees. And not to confuse it with trimming, okay? Just a little quick, I guess, boat lesson. But trimming is when the ship tips forward or backward. And then rolling is when a ship is moving from side to side trying to find balance. So these are terms that you'll see a lot in the official reports. At one point, it was rolling to try and find balance, but ultimately, it was listing to the left, 30 degrees. None of this is great, but 30 degrees list doesn't mean capsizing. It doesn't automatically mean it. And it gets technical, but I'm going to try and describe it as best as possible. If the cargo had been tied down, it probably might have balanced the boat back out. The boat might have rolled and then eventually become stable again. Now, even if it didn't become stable again, there is something called ballast water. Okay, this is going to get very technical. All boats want to have a low center of gravity. The parts closest to the water needs to be the center of gravity. So did you know most boats are filled with water? It sounds counterintuitive, but it's something called ballast water, which is just to bring the center of gravity, right?
Yeah.
They had like no ballast water. The center of gravity was at the top of the boat.
Why? Oh, so they can load more cars.
Yes. So there's no way that this boat is gonna fix itself, balance itself out. No way. Let me show you some footage.
This is
You know,
really
I can't envision it as, you know, sometimes you throw a boat on the water, it will float. And then I'm just imagining the, like filling that boat to the brim of sinking and floating.
Yes.
So it's like anything moves, it will start sink.
Precisely. That's literally what this boat is doing. This is from
Anything, I
Black
guess.
Box when the boat leaned initially.
Can you show me? Not show to the one dude behind you? Right in front of
So
you?
this is also why it's so pertinent that when you're aboard a boat or a plane, they're tying down all the cargo. That's why they're so particular about it. If you've ever brought your car on a boat, they tie it down.
Hell no,
So
I'm not
all
doing
of
that.
this cargo, all of these vehicles slam to the left, and this boat is not going to balance out. This boat is 100% going to capsize, meaning it's going to sink. Now, the water is very cold in April.
Oh,
It was about 54 degrees Fahrenheit. It only takes 10 minutes for you to start feeling the effects of hypothermia. You're not going to die in 10 minutes, but most of the time. But you start feeling loss of dexterity. Your fingers go numb. You're starting to, your teeth are clattering. And full-blown hypothermia happens after about 2 hours. So right at this moment, the boat it leans, and the engines of the boat are cut. The off-duty Captain Lee Chun-seok, he starts running. He's like, I gotta figure out what's going on. Some crew members also run to the bridge of the boat and they're like, what's going on? Now, they're trying to assess the situation. And when a boat this size starts to list or even starts sinking, it's not like an earthquake. Not every single passenger is going to jerk up and go, we need to evacuate this boat. It feels dangerous, but it almost feels like turbulence on a plane. You feel like, okay, I need to wait it out and it's going to be fine. You never really hit turbulence and you're like, this plane is going down. So that's kind of how everyone was feeling except for the crew because they knew better. 8:52 a.m., just 2 minutes after the boat starts leaning to the left about 30 degrees, an emergency call is made by a student, Choi Tok-ha. Choi reported that the Sewol was starting to capsize. He was the first 911 call. And that the water was coming into the decks. He's like, something's going on. I'm on the decks and this is dangerous. He was one of the few that understood the severity of the situation, and he was probably confused because he could
Honestly,
hear
y'all shoulda
ringing
listened to him at
through the
that
PA
point.
system, like the intercom system, the speakers on the boats. Do not move. Just stay where you are. It's dangerous if you move. Stay where you are. Every single student and passenger was told to stay put. And now, all hell breaks loose. Crew members are calling so many different people. There's the Jeju Vessel Traffic Service, Korean Coast Guard, Jeju Coast Guard, Mokpo Coast Guard Station, their company executives. There's so many different people that this communication system is just bonkers. The fact that they don't have a system in place of like, if an emergency happens, this is who I call, is crazy to me. Nobody was getting anything done. So much time initially is wasted in these key moments. At 9:07 a.m., the crew confirmed to authorities the ferry is capsizing, and they confirmed that they needed help from the Korean Coast Guard. They stated the ship's angle made evacuation impossible. Now, here's where it gets crazy. Allegedly, none of these authorities knew that there were 500 passengers on this, well, close to 500 passengers on this boat. That's what they claim. I don't believe it for a second, but that's what they claim.
Wait, who claimed that? The
All the
police?
Coast Guards, yeah. They're like, no one told us. We just thought it was the crew. We thought it was a cargo ship. Get out of
Y'all
here
didn't
because
have
this
an
Haewon
agreement
was
or
well
talk
known to be a
before?
passenger cargo ship.
Y'all should have
So
done on
they
that.
say the ferry is about to roll over,
Oh,
meaning it was listing to the left, but because it was taking in so much water, it was practically bonk flat onto the left, and now it was going to flip over and capsize. So it's not even sinking just to the bottom like this. It's going to be completely inverted.
God.
The bottom is going to be the top. The Coast Guard tells the crew on Sewol to inform any passengers, if there are any, to put on their life jackets. But they just say, oh, sorry, our PA system is down. It wasn't down. It's just bizarre. Okay?
So why did they lie?
Yeah, so it was like down at one point, but then it comes back up, and then a customer service rep is like playing that, or like a customers relations crew member is playing the message of like, do not move. There was like no communication. Now, the Coast Guard is like, okay, well, if it's down, then go personally tell the passengers. The crew member is like, okay, I'm going to do that. He walks out of the command center and walks around a bit and comes back being like, I did that. He did not do that. He just lied. He just blatantly lied to authorities and said, yeah, I told all the passengers to put on their life jackets.
No, you didn't. Why
What?
just a
Yeah.
lie?
Do they not understand what the hell's going on?
Look,
No,
like, y'all not
they do
know
not.
that y'all
The
all
Coast
gonna
Guard
die.
tries to tell Captain
You
Lee that you need
gotta
to
tell the
start
truth.
thinking and acting fast. They have deployed a vessel. There was a patrol vessel nearby that was coming in about 10 minutes. There was a helicopter that would get there in about 1 minute. And Lee said, yeah, that's not enough to save everybody. Like there's more passengers than that. Because one helicopter, you could save maybe a dozen people max. No, maybe
True.
like 6, 7 people.
Helicopters ain't that
Keep
big.
this part in mind.
Most
Because
of them.
later, everyone goes and says, oh, when he said passengers, we thought maybe a couple of passengers.
Wow. I mean, right now everything falls on the captain, right?
Oh, yeah, but
It's going down. Like, what are you
Everybody's
doing?
stupid.
Every second, what are you
Yes,
doing?
Exactly. And you're going to die when you find out what he was doing. So the passengers up until this point are still being told to stay where they are and do not move. And some of the very first people rescued was the captain and a few of his crew.
Maybe they
그러나
should be,
구조당국이 가장 먼저 구조한 사람은 배를 버린 선장과 선원이었다.
The
Bro, they
captain
should be
was rescued
last,
by one of the
honestly,
small
just for
Coast
that.
Guard
Y'all
boats,
should be last.
and he
If y'all
wore
die, I don't
ordinary
care.
clothes to disguise himself as a passenger.
Oh my
he
god.
a
Once
menace,
he
bro.
was rescued,
He is
he
a
made
menace.
no attempts, and he actually was rescued. I don't want to say before the chaos because right now is chaos, but he was rescued at a point where it wasn't just utter all hell breaks loose and there are people drowning and dying right now. He's like, okay, well, I think chaos is about to hit, so I'm gonna leave.
That's so
Think.
fucking despicable.
Yes. Yeah, he's actually one of the most hated people in all of South Korea.
It's crazy.
The whole
'cause we
nation.
just
He's
reacted
alive.
to a video
He disguised himself
about
as a
that.
passenger, and once he was rescued, this is even more despicable. He gets on the Coast Guard vessel and he doesn't let anyone know that he is the captain and that he has vital information that would help them in rescuing passengers. He doesn't relay any information to them when time and information is the most important thing to save lives. He made no attempts to tell them how many passengers, where they were, what the PA system was doing. He did none of that. He didn't tell them that they were being told to stay in their rooms where they were effectively trapped inside this sinking boat. None of that. There is about 20 minutes of footage from some of the kids' last moments. And one of the biggest, I guess, video files that were actually shared by the father of the victim. And he said that he wanted the world to know what actually happened to these kids. So it was filmed by a Park Soo-hyung and Kim Dong-hyuk. They were both 16, best friends. They were both on the level 3 of the boat, which is where most of the male students were dorming. These rooms had bunk beds, about 4 boys per room. Soo-hyun and Dong-hyuk, they were 2 of the last ones to start the day. They're hanging out in the cabin, sitting on the edge of their cabin, like bunk bed, when they suddenly feel the boat lurch to the left. And at first, everyone's confused, but like I said, it feels like airplane turbulence. They're not freaking out yet. Then they start overhearing the speakers starting blaring. Do not move, stay put. It's dangerous if you move, just stay where you are. If you're watching the video on YouTube or Spotify, I'm going to play you a clip of the video. You can actually hear the PA system in the background repeating, stay where you are, over and over again.
아 기울어졌어. 야 나 좀 살려줘.
현재 자리에서 움직이지 마시고 안전으로 잡고 대기해 주시기 바랍니다.
이거 상황이 아니야. 이거 실제라고. 와 기울 줄은 상상도 못했다. 이게 뭔 상황인지 모르겠어. 구명조끼 입으라는 거 침몰되고 있다는 소리 아니야?
So the boys on the 3rd floor are freaking out. Some
Oh,
students
they
who were
sound
on
like
the
they
deck
were
come to the
laughing.
cabins to
They
let
were
everyone
not-
know to put on their life
They
jackets.
did not care.
The video footage from these students are stitched together to be about 20 minutes, but it's probably the most raw footage I've ever seen in my life. Like, it's not necessarily the most emotional in the typical sense, meaning these kids aren't crying, they're not banging
They
on the windows to
laughing.
get out, but you just see how real and relatable the situation is. Like the way that these kids, at first, they don't think the ship is going to sink, because who thinks that? You know, they're kind of joking around, but they're putting faith in the adults and the captain and the PA system, and they're kind of playing around with each other. And I find that it's a way that they're coping with it.
Yeah, I'd be like,
And then
hell no, I'm
eventually
not
you hear
bluffing
that
till I
humor
find
kind of
out whether we
dissipate,
dying or not.
and it gets replaced by them saying, I don't want to die. But they're still trying to keep this almost cool front in front of their friends. You can hear other kids trying to check up on their friends and contacting their family members back home on their phones. But near the end, you can hear and see most of them start to feel very, very scared. You hear students say things like, will the water really leak in? The shaking is getting serious. It's tilting so much this way, I can't even move. This is getting ridiculous. I want to get off. I really want to leave. Am I going to die? It's not going to go down any further, right? Like, what the hell is going on? Hurry and rescue us. What's wrong with these people? I don't understand what's happening. If they're telling us to wear life vests, does that mean the ship is sinking?
Shaking and energetic. It was dangerous.
때리고 싶어. 진짜 진심이야. 자꾸 바뀌었어. 우리 죽었어. 야 이거 아니 뭘 꺼내.
I don't know if that's my phone or they make them sound like the Minions, bro.
뒤지기 싫어요. 엄마한테 전화해볼까?
Why they sound like the Minions, bro? What is this auto doing? I'm reading this, but like, why they make them sound like that?
내 동생 말을 절대로 다 수련회 가처럼 되기 싫으면 알지? 제발 살려줘. 엄마 사랑해요. 아빠 사랑해요. 둘 다 사랑해요. 센세 어딨어?
Near the end, one of the students even screams, let me live. Who's going to take care of my mom and sister? Let me
Eh?
live.
I didn't even see
And now,
that.
all throughout this, you hear the PA system in the back. Dear passengers, a guidance announcement. Those of you who are inside the ship, please do not move. Try to find a pole you can hold on to. The kids also note that they start smelling something very bad. They wonder out loud if it's gas because it smells like boiled eggs,
Someone
which is
probably
typically a gas leak
Already,
scent.
and the
Who's
smell,
talking
the smell
in the
starting to pick
system?
up.
Just it's like an
I
automated
don't know.
message.
Maybe.
Oh,
Yeah.
Nobody's even like talking.
No. Oh yeah, no. Most of the crew are like, bye.
Here's a button. They press a button
Yeah.
and then they dip.
Damn.
And it's very heartbreaking because you just hear that playing while these kids are repeating, we don't want to die. So more phone calls were placed between passengers and police. The students are even telling the police, please, the ship is sinking. I don't want to die. We've been told to stay put. We're not supposed to move. Another student can be heard saying, really, once the water starts coming in, we really got to get out. And another student says, no, like it says we shouldn't move.
Honestly, don't listen to him. If you know
There are a
he's
few
moving-
things to gather from these students' last moments.
Okay.
They're trying to stay strong. They're trying to keep each other company. And if you listen and you speak Korean and you listen to the whole clip, a lot of these kids are thinking about their families, or a lot of them are asking, wait, has anybody checked on the girls on the other floor? Or has anyone checked on the teachers? Like trying to see if their friends and even their teachers are okay. Some of them were joking around that this was the Titanic and sang the theme song, which I saw a lot of like old people be like, what's wrong with kids? But that's how they cope. They followed the rules. They followed the advice of the adults who they believed were doing the right thing. So they stayed put. They trusted the captain. Even teachers were going around dorm to dorm to make sure that these kids didn't go because they thought, again, it was in the best interest to stay put. One student texted his mom, please, if I don't survive, Mom and Dad, I love you. Another one texted his parents, Mom, Dad, younger sister, I love you guys so much, and please don't ever let my little sister go on a school trip ever. These are some of the kids' last words. So, key points. They're told to stay in their cabin. They're told not to evacuate or come to the deck. They also noticed that some of the zippers on many of the life vests were broken. Not only that, but one of the boys said, I just discovered something really horrible. This life vest says it was made in 1994. Here, look, it's written in the back. Made in 1994. They didn't even have enough life vests to go around. So a lot of the kids were sacrificing life vests to each other and to their friends. They were asking if the teachers and the girls all had life vests. The videos were captured on Kim Dong-yeop's phone, and he would not make it out alive. So while this is the situation inside the boat, mainstream media at the same time, like imagine this is happening at the same time. Please, just the irony of all of this. Mainstream media starts reporting that all passengers have been rescued. It sounds stranger than fiction. I don't even know how to explain to you what they thought that they were going to get out of this, what the politicians thought was going to happen when this all came out to be lies and false. But it's insane. If this happened in a movie, it'd be unbelievable. There were reports that all passengers were rescued. Tanwon High
Clearly
School
not
parents
if
let out a
somebody
sigh of
died.
relief.
No,
Oh my
no
God.
more
Okay.
tape.
That cryptic text, my child is fine. They're probably not responding to my texts or my calls because they're probably on like a Coast Guard vessel right now and they're busy. But that's fine. They start noticing something fishy, though. They're trying to get in contact with their children, no responses. They contact other parents, and they're like, no, we also haven't gotten any responses. And when they watch the news very carefully, the numbers aren't adding up. And it's not like some sort of conspiracy, but the government would report that they rescued all the passengers. Then a little bit later, they'd be like, okay, well, we have rescued majority of the passengers. Then it'd be like, oh, and these are not the exact figures, but it would be something like, we rescued 200 passengers. And then later they'd be like, we rescued 150 passengers. So which one is it? Who are you rescuing? How do you
If they all
unrescue
dead,
people?
they all alive. What y'all
You're a
doing?
powerful nation and you can't even do basic arithmetic? Like, what's going on? So frustrated, the parents, they start traveling to Chindo
listening.
Island. Now, Chindo Island is the closest island to where the crash happened. Not Jeju Island. Chindo Island is very close to the southern tip of South Korea. Jeju Island, you'd have to go further out into the Yellow Sea. The parents all decide to use the Chindo gym to be their coordination place. And I truly don't even know how to explain what I'm going to say next. But first of all, the people organizing this gym to make sure everyone is in the right place were the parents of the children on the boat. They arrived, there's no organization, it's chaos, so they take it upon themselves to make sure everything is organized. Not the Coast Guards, not the local officials, the police, the parents take charge. The rescue teams had these giant whiteboards on the front with a list of names of passengers who have been rescued. And of course, parents are flocking and praying and wishing that it's their child on the list. But these families are getting frustrated. One parent grabs a mic and says, here, I can clearly see my younger sister's name on the list of survivors. It says she was rescued, but my sister isn't here. So where is my sister?
No, they
Who on
lying.
earth made this
she's
list?
Gone. She's gone.
여기 명단에 분명히 제 동생이 있어요. 여기 명단에 분명히 제 동생이 있는데 동생이 여기 없어요. 지금 명단을 누가 작성하셨냐고요?
So these are authorities being like, here's all the people we rescued. And the parents are like, we don't believe you because where are our children then?
상황이라도 좀 알았으면 좋겠는데 상황을 지금 모르니까 지금 불안해서 어떻게 할 수가 없네.
Another parent screamed, please, just get us a boat so we can save our kids. Get us a boat. We don't care how much it costs. I will pay for it.
저희 가서 우리 애들 부모에게 배를 하나 구해주세요. 배를 하나 구해주세요. 전부 다 돈을 얼마든지 드릴 테니까.
최선을 다하겠습니다.
배도 안 보인대요. 경찰들만 돌고 있고 아무 그거 없대요 지금. 잡수고 없고 지금 그런 상황이거든요.
지금 뭐 얘기로는 지금 뭐 시신도 많이 꺼냈다고 하는데 지금 가요.
Another one said, I feel like the parents, including myself, are here waiting for our children to die. We want an answer from the person in charge. Why are orders not going through and nothing's being done? You guys are clearly lying and kicking responsibility to others. Another parent screams, let's all go together. Let's all go together. The parents are rushed to the harbor, and to show you how they still had this unfailing hope of a parent, they all grabbed blankets on the way out. They said when their kid gets saved, they want to make sure that they have something to keep them warm. They all go to the harbor and they wait. There's nothing that they can do. Side note, police were lined up at the edge of the harbor to prevent family members from going into the water, whether to try and rescue a kid or to in a desperate attempt. A parent screamed, I want to jump in the water with them. My loved one is under the water. Anger is not enough. If I don't have my younger child, I'm going to jump in the water thinking about my child in the water. How can I, as a parent, continue to live, eat, and drink? I hate myself. Someone near a mom tried to put one of the blankets on one of the moms because it was so cold. And she cried, what good is it staying warm when the kids are freezing out there? They're freezing. What good is it for us to stay warm? Not a single government official was at that harbor. Nobody responded to the family's frustrations or questions.
They both.
헬기 탔다길래 난 구조되는 줄 알았어 언니. 우리만 따뜻하면 뭐하냐고요. 애들이 추운데 우리만 따뜻하면 뭐하냐고.
Wait, this is nighttime?
Yeah.
It's been a day?
It's been a day.
Jesus.
We're gonna go back into the rescue. Just you wait.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so again, I mean, the families resorted to asking reporters on what's going on, but none of the reporters, most of the reporters at the harbor at this point were mainstream media reporters. The only ones there that actually cared about helping the parents was Newstapa, which is why I think a lot of parents continue to work with Newstapa. These are some of the most devastating clips I've seen. I mean, just the desperation in these parents, like their grief, their worry, their anger, and so many of them is it's a lot.
진짜 가보자. 기자들도 당신들도 타고 현장을 한번 가보자. 제대로 된 정보를 여러분한테 좀 알려주라는 얘기야, 내 얘기는.
So let's talk about the rescue, because you mentioned, like, how is this nighttime? So the rescue that government officials and media said was a success was not a success at all. The Coast Guard helicopter was dispatched to the sinking ferry at 9:10 a.m. They arrive at around 9:30 a.m. 2 rescuers come down and rescue 6 passengers via helicopter. And these passengers were, like, on the deck. So they're like waving, they're visible, they're outside. Now, at 9:32, the helicopter starts communicating with the Blue House. And the Blue House is like the White House. And they keep asking, is the situation serious? The helicopter says, the ferry is tilted and currently being flooded. It hasn't sunken yet. Can you please send over a video?
Oh my God.
Now, this is being heavily criticized because time is of the essence. Such an urgent incident is taking place, and really, I don't know what to say because it casually feels like the Blue House is saying, Pixar, it didn't happen. And sure, maybe videos can help them get a better understanding of what's going on, but if this is the government responsible for running a literal company, they better be more competent than this. They keep calling back to the helicopter, not giving commands, not doing a full-scale command center operation, but going, did you send the videos yet? Just nonstop. over
That's
and
all
over
they
and
care
over
about.
again, wasting time asking for videos.
All y'all care
And what's
about
even
is
crazier
videos.
is that the helicopter is like, well, we didn't want to take any videos in case it gets leaked. But the Blue House is like, it's fine, text it to my phone.
No.
What?
Here, there's footage.
지금 현재 지금 일단 배가 좀 기울어서 침수 중이고 아직 침몰은 안 됐고요. 어디 저기 카메라 나오는 건 없죠? 네, 아직 없습니다. 예. 현지 영상 있습니까? 혹시 나오는 거? 현지 영상 볼 수 있는 거 있습니까? 본인 내 외부로 나가지 아마 않을 건데 이게 방송이. 그뭐 지하철 보고 때문에 그런데 영상이라 방식으로 핸드폰으로 한번 보여주시겠습니까?
The Blue House is basically like, okay, well, we're going to hang up. Just call us back when you get the footage. Oh, this is like the smallest thing the Blue House messes up. So just you wait. I mean,
Oh
a
my
president
God, they
was
mess up even
indirectly
more?
impeached because of this incident. So soon after this, the Coast Guard patrol vessel 123 arrives at the ferry. They throw over a raft and they head to the ferry to start their little rescue. Just anytime I say rescue, don't think of it as a rescue. Think of it in quotations because it's just a bunch of people acting busy. The first people to step into this rescue raft are the captain and crew members. Not all, but a few.
They're like, I'm out.
Yeah, they're like, bye. They have abandoned the ship. But then so does the Coast Guard.
They left the kids.
The Coast Guard,
In
the
their
vessel, distances itself
say
from the
bye?
ferry and they try not to enter the ferry, get close to the ferry. They don't try anything. Meanwhile, there's about 3 helicopters that are just circulating, that are just loitering the area, watching.
What's the deal? What's the problem then?
Why
No
are they
one's
not
giving them
helping
any commands.
So they're all clueless on what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
And the captain is like just staying silent.
Yeah. And then the Blue House is like, well, we can't tell you what to do unless we get a clear HD 4K video. And then all these other authorities, like the Coast Guard, the Mokpo Coast Guard, the Chindo authorities, they're like, well, we don't know what to do. Have you tried calling the Blue House?
Wow.
Dude,
So
holy
everyone's just
dude.
waiting around. And what's crazy is that there was a
There's 3
U.S. Navy vessel
helicopters.
that was nearby that
You're just
rushed to
gonna
the
watch,
scene and they're
like,
like, hey,
go
we can
down and
help.
help?
And the U.S. Navy is so equipped. This vessel had 100 Marines on there. 100 Marines. South Korea was like, it's fine. We're waiting on a video.
The government shut them down?
Yeah, the government was like, it's fine. We're handling it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm going on a little side note, but another rant. The U.S. vessel, the Navy vessel, actually had helicopters on the vessel and they had launch pads. So basically, they didn't have to go back to land to bring survivors. They could just go back and forth to their vessel that's parked very close to the sinking ferry so they could save an insane number of survivors. 1 or 2 helicopters could just do nonstop back and forth in such short time. We're going to dive into the U.S. Navy later because there's a lot of, a lot of stuff there. Now, anyways, these are not leisure helicopters either. The helicopters that are circulating the ferry are Coast Guard helicopters and they make no additional effort. So they saved 6 people initially. That's it. They make no additional efforts to rescue anyone. They later claim that they had no idea that there were passengers inside. They thought the rescue was over and they were just surveilling the sinking of the ferry. To sum it up, the rescue teams were just rescuing anyone that comes to the deck where you can visibly see them, but every single passenger was told to stay in their cabins.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. I cannot even imagine what that captain was going through at that moment.
But we can't even imagine it because I don't think any of us have such little empathy for human life.
Yeah, like when he got out, does he think that all the kids are going to come onto the deck eventually? Or
does he
he's
think
like
the Coast Guard's gonna break in?
Yeah, is he knowingly making a decision like, whatever, I just gotta save myself, let them die?
Okay, my speculation is probably the last one because I imagine if rescue efforts were made, he would be the last one rescued because that's kind of how it is in maritime communities. But maybe he thought there is a bigger chance he might die. Because I don't know what he was thinking, genuinely. I can't even guess. No one is saving anyone unless they're visibly out on the deck, like waving their arms around in these bright red life jackets. Like I said, the problem is nobody was told to come out onto the deck. The helicopters again claim that they had no reason to believe that there were passengers inside. One helicopter Coast Guard officer, even during an interview, complains, rescue is hard. Because you tell a person that you're rescuing to watch their step, and they don't watch their step, even if you tell them to.
옆에서 말을 해도 안 들고 하물며 어떤 올라갈 때 조심하라고 자세 처럼.
아니 그러니까 그거는 알겠는데 그 사람들 상황은 아는데 지금 구조를 하시는 입장에서는 확인해야 되는 게 인거 같은 게 아닌가.
제가 물어본 것 같아요. 근데
And Newstep is like, that's not the point here. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the fact that you circled around this sinking ferry and made no attempts to save anyone. They're like, we didn't know there was anyone to save. It's like, why would you even bring that up? It's so bizarre. Nobody asked. Now, the annoying part is the helicopters that are circulating were talking separately with the Blue House. The giant vessel from the Coast Guard was speaking separately with the Blue House as well as the Coast Guard. There was no coordination. It seemed like everything was all hell breaks loose. Nobody knows what they're doing. Blue House is still asking for videos, and the only people that do something to save human lives. Do you see all these little boats? Those are civilian boats and fishermen.
No way.
They are the ones that...
Not even gonna lie, I was just sitting silent the whole time. I was so...
ferry, and it's very dangerous to get that close to a boat that's capsizing, especially with boats like this. And they're pulling people out of the water. One of the fishermen, Hyun, in the blue boat, he said he saw the boat listing to one side from afar, and he realized that it wasn't balancing itself back out. So he rushes over, he starts rescuing passengers that were jumping into the cold water, and he said it was hell. It was agonizing. There were a lot of people, not enough boats. The people in the water are yelling for help. The ferry was sinking fast. He said he had no idea of how many people he saved, but he was told he saved about 25 people. He said, but I don't know for sure. The people that were trapped inside the ferry couldn't come out. They were just trapped inside the ferry. If everyone was saved, maybe I would feel proud of myself. But there's grieving parents out there, so how can I feel proud?
True.
Even though he's one of the civilians saving passengers, while the Coast Guard is doing nothing, he lives with guilt for not saving everyone. What's frustrating is when the ferry starts to list, if the captain had ordered everyone to put on a life jacket and get to the dock where they're visible, the likelihood of every single person surviving was incredibly high. The amount of vessels nearby, not just civilian boats and fishermen, but the Coast Guard ships, the US Navy vessels, I mean, the resources of that US Navy vessels, like I said, multiple helicopters, landing decks of the helicopters, over 1,000 Marines ready to assist in air, sea rescue.
1,000?
1,000. Sorry, did I say 100?
You say 100.
1,000.
I lucky don't even know what
1,000
you
Marines.
said.
That's how big the US Navy vessel was.
Wow.
1,000 Marines. And I know I'm American, so it might not mean anything because it's just patriotism. But if I'm in the water somewhere, I want these Marines to save me.
Literally.
And America and Korea are on really good terms, so I don't know why they declined for help. But a lot of people think it's... President Park was known to have a big ego and was very, very self-conscious about international relations, but not in the way that you want
In
your
this
president to be.
situation,
Not in the way of like, oh, of course
So
we want
what?
good
You
international
save lives,
relations,
and you
but
gonna just do that.
wanted to look good is all she cared about.
Put a death penalty on
So the
him.
U.S. Navy vessel just loitered around, waiting to be used at any given moment. They're like waiting to be called in because, you
Who
know,
cares?
it'd be a
Just go.
shit show
Who
if they
cares?
just
You
went
don't
in
even need
there.
to call in. Just go.
But the call never came. The rescue could have been so successful, and these Marines are specifically trained in air-sea rescue.
No way.
The Korean Coast Guard, they were more like patrol people. They patrol to make sure that there's no illegal fishermen from other countries fishing in their seas. Most of the Korean Coast Guard was on a job to look for illegal Chinese fishermen, literally. That was their job. So the U.S. Navy, why were they not used? I still don't understand.
Nobody
So
knows.
one thing that you
Besides
notice
them.
that's a problem is that all of these officials who get paid by the state, by government tax dollars that the civilians pay, they don't want to be the ones to make the call. They don't want to be the ones held accountable. So everyone keeps pushing responsibility onto each other. And that's what resulted in so many of these different vessels and helicopters just
Someone
waiting
do
around
it.
while people are dying. But there are heroes in this story. So do you remember the first emergency call made was by a student, Chue?
Mm-hmm.
He stayed on the phone with emergency services trying to give them the exact location of the sinking ferry.
Oh, he was the first one that called
So
them?
then they should know there's kids in there.
Yeah, exactly. He tried to give the exact location because, again, I don't know why this was such a problem. I don't know how they didn't know where the exact location was. But remember the 2.5 hour delay? I guess they were thinking the boat was closer to Jeju because they didn't factor in the delay, but they were closer to Jindo Island, so it was a mess. And Choi, he was sad that he wasn't able to call his parents. The information that he was able to provide to authorities was very crucial. Choi's body was found, and his parents were really confused because, you know, a lot of these other kids, they all had cell service and they called their parents, but they never got a call from their son. Oh, wow. They were later told that he was the one on the phone with emergency services. And they said, you know, it made sense. We're just so proud of him, and we think that God brought our boy into this world for this purpose, to try and save people. While Captain Lee and a few of the other crew members escaped, there were some crew members who refused. Park Ji-yeon, Chung Hyun-sun, and Kim Gi-won, they stayed aboard the ferry to help the students. All three went down with the sinking boat. Park Ji-young was the youngest part-time worker of the crew. She was just 22 years old. I mean, she's barely older than these high school students. Barely. 2 years prior to this, her father passed away and her mom didn't have enough money. So she dropped out of school and started working. She was one of the first to have an easy escape. She was like near the dock. She could hear the kids though, and the PA system was still telling them to stay put. So she runs to the ship, took off her life jacket, gave it to a younger kid nearby who didn't have one. And like I said, she's basically a kid herself. She starts stumbling, running as fast as she can through the halls and yells for the students to evacuate. She's handing out life jackets. She tells them to jump ship. She guides some 50 students to the civilian fishing boats who lift them out of the water and into the boat. One survivor remembers grabbing Park's arm and saying, okay, just come, jump in the water with us. Like, you don't have a life jacket, but I'm going to hold your arm. And she said, after saving you guys, after saving the rest of them, I'll get out. Crew goes out last. And then she just disappeared again to save more kids. She kept going, and the last time someone saw her alive was going deeper into the water where it was already chest level to see if there were more students. Her body was later found floating face down. Still no life jacket. Even in her last moments, she never wore one because there wasn't enough life jackets for both passenger and crew.
That's sad.
2 other crewmates, Chung Hyun-sun and Kim Gi-won, they refused to escape with cowards. They wanted to save the kids. Chung and Kim also could have been very easily rescued, but they decided to go back down and help the children. Yeah. They were both 28, and they were actually getting married later that year to each other. Their bodies were later found as well, and they had spent their last moments saving children. These 3 part-time crew members would formally be recognized by the government as national martyrs, because it was just such a stark contrast to the captain and the crew. I mean, most of the crew who were among the first to abandon the ship. Young Dae-hong was another crew member that went down with the ship. He's 45 years old, and he called his wife, and he told her, "This is where you need to find the savings for our teenage son's college tuition, okay?" And when she tried to plead with him, he told her, "I love you, but I can't talk. I have to go save the kids." His body was found a month later, and his face was unrecognizable, and there was a walkie-talkie found near him. Soo-young was a young teacher, and it was her second year teaching at Tanwon High. She was very young, and it was her first year on the school field trip. When the boat started sinking, she texted her mom, "Mom, the ship is sinking." Her mom called her and was like, "Hurry, put on a life vest," and she responded calmly, "Mom, the students are all wearing life vests," indicating there weren't any more for her. Yeah. She texted her boyfriend after this and said, "I'm sorry. There's no more life vest. Thank you, and I love you." And he calls her and she says, "I can't. I'm sorry. My battery is low and some of the students still need to call their parents." Her last words were, "I love you, thank you," to her boyfriend. Another teacher was Ko Chang-suk, and Mr. Ko was a PE teacher. Oh my god, this picture. This is the PE teacher. He was a PE teacher for the last decade, and at his old job before he got to Tanwon, there was actually a fire in the school, and he was given like an award by the school because he ran in head on into the fire to save students from the burning fire. He also went down And I mean, there was no
all
question
the
what he was
good
going to do.
ones, like,
He
all the
was
good,
going to save the
good,
kids.
brave people
He left behind a loving
gone.
wife and 2 sons. His body actually wouldn't be recovered until 3 years after the incident.
How the hell did
There
y'all
was
3
a
years
memorial
of
service held for him, and a student came and said, Mr. Ko could have escaped early, but he stayed to take care of us until the very end. So these are all heroes, and it's not really a heartwarming story, though, where you feel good in the end. You're like, yes, the hero won, because nobody wins. There's like way too many villains in this one to even
many
get close to the
deaths.
number of heroes.
Too many
There's another
villains.
story, though, on the boat where a 6-year-old girl, this reminds me of Itaewon, but a 6-year-old girl was there with her parents and her 7-year-old brother. So they were part of the passengers that were going on vacation to Jeju. She was passed one by one from adults to the water to one of the fishermen's boats, all the way. Her parents and her 7-year-old brother would all perish. Everyone worked to get this girl to safety, and she would be the youngest survivor of Sewol. Now, civilians were the only hope for these children because of the government, the authorities, they were doing nothing. Like I said, most of these boats saving these people are civilians, fishermen, commercial fishermen, just regular citizens, not government workers. But many civilian divers who saw the news said they were gearing up to volunteer as rescuers. These are like professional divers who have been doing this that want to volunteer to save these kids, right? They know the dangers. They're gearing up, they're coming from Seoul and all these places. But then the news starts flooding that everyone has been rescued. So they're like, oh, okay, I guess I don't have to go? Like, why would I go into the water if everyone's already rescued out of the water? And it wasn't until hours later there were these like rumors and these kind of like fishy things that these volunteer divers were even picking up on. Because, you know, these are people who know how to dive, and the way that the news was reporting these rescues just didn't sound right. So they're like, why don't I just head to Jindo Island and see what's going on? Maybe they need me, maybe they don't. I mean, at least I can try, right? So many precious hours were lost because these civilian divers didn't go at the time because, I mean, nobody's blaming the civilian divers here. They're risking their lives to save others. But the fact that they thought everyone had been rescued, it's just so frustrating how grossly mishandled this was. Many of the civilian divers, they volunteered and they started arriving at around 4 p.m. that day. The boat started sinking at like 9 a.m. They got there around 4 p.m. and they were told to report to a command ship of the Coast Guard that was stationed near the ferry. So these volunteer divers, they don't come to play. They're suiting up, gearing up, mentally preparing themselves, but the Coast Guard is not letting them do their jobs.
What the hell?
One of the civilian divers said it was bizarre. I was being walked around this Coast Guard vessel. Like, come here, let me introduce you to my colleague. Oh, and this is my captain here. Oh, and then this is my senior colleague. What did you say your name was? How long have you guys been diving? Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Oh, you know, my colleague is from that area. Do you want to come to the cafeteria? They prepared ramen. This is not an exaggeration. The rescue diver said they prepared ramen, and he was so disgusted. He just didn't understand. He saw some of the top dogs aboard this command ship. 2-star Navy officers, chief of the Coast Guard, chief of the West Coast Coast Guard, the chief of the Mokpo Coast Guard, fancy suits and shoes, tapping away on their laptops.
Wait, I'm confused. Like they're not sending people down the water?
No. That's what they're doing, just tip-tapping on their laptops. The ramen was even brought into the conference room for these chiefs to eat, and the diver that was interviewed said he wished he could have recorded the video of these chiefs just digging into these noodles like pigs. They said they ate the ramen noodles, had a meeting for 5 minutes, and then the chiefs were like, well, we got other places to be, so bye. He was sickened to see that the chief of the West Coast Guard went to a press conference like immediately after this, the whole ramen debacle, in his uniform with all of his badges, and stated,
Jesus, dude. Anyways, that's gonna do it for this video. This was a crazy video, I have to say. Like, this is probably crazier than any. Well, I only reacted to 2, but this is probably the craziest one. Probably the next one I react is gonna be even crazier. But this is definitely a sad one, especially if you're an emotional person. I'm really not. Like, I'm not like choosing. It's just different. I'm just not really emotional like that. But I understood. It was a sad situation. Like, how they just not gonna let the parents save their kids. It was just weird because nobody is. They know the kids are in there. They know that everybody's finna die, and they just not letting them save them. U.S. Navy, the parents, Coast Guard, they all wanted to save their kids, and then South Korea and the other people there, they were just like, no, can't let you do that. Like, it's kind of crazy. Clearly, if y'all saw the video, y'all know that I was yawning. So clearly I'm tired, but I'll get this video uploaded. If not tonight, then definitely tomorrow. Yeah. I would say I will come up with a Bears video, but after what's been happening these last 3 games, I don't even know if I can make another Bears video anymore this year. It's been that bad this season that I've honestly lost all faith. You're lucky I didn't even take down these posters and flags. But we're making a video. It looks like a nice one. If this video gets any views, I don't know. Like, subscribe, comment down below what y'all think of this video. Let me know if y'all want more of these, cause I looked on the comments on the last video and they said like need a part 2. So should I make this into a series or not? And yeah, I'll be gone.